Alrighty, welcome to your first flipped video. So we are going to real briefly go over writing expressions. I gave you these three yesterday to write down in your spiral. If you weren't able to do that, or if we didn't get to that in your class, then go ahead and pause the video now and just write these three things in your spiral as algebraic expressions. You don't need to write the words, the verbal description, but go ahead and translate these into an algebraic expression. I do want you to try this on your own before I give you the answers. So go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Okay, so assuming you've already tried these, let me go ahead and just give you the answers, and I will go over why these answers are what they are in a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and give them to you so you can see how you did. 5 less than a number actually looks like this, x minus 5. The quantity of a number plus 4 multiplied by 9. Here's the quantity of a number plus 4. And you can either put the 9 over here to show us you multiplied by 9, or you could put it over here. And if you have some sort of multiplication symbol in between them, that's okay as well, but you technically don't need it. The difference between the product of 3 and x, there's product of 3 and x, and the quotient of m and 9. Well, it's the difference between m, so my subtraction sign. Quotient of m and 9 is m over 9. You could also say m divided by 9 with a division sign, but we kind of stop using those when you get to 8th grade in Algebra 1. Alrighty, so let's go into why this is the way it is. Before we do that, I want you to record on your notes a few different little vocab words, okay? This right here is an expression, okay? This right here is also an expression. Notice what I am not including when I write expression. I'm not including that equal sign, okay? So this whole thing would be considered the equation. Okay, so I was very specific when I asked you to write algebraic expressions because none of the things I wrote or I asked you to write would include an equal sign. So a few more parts. Okay, here is the variable. Hopefully you know that by now, as well as this x over here. Pick a new color. Let's see, this 5 and this 25 are both constants, okay, the numbers that are on their own. And let's see, I'm running out of colors. This 2 and this negative 3, notice I said negative 3, are both the coefficients. Probably the one word that is kind of weird to us right now, coefficients. The coefficient is just the number that's being multiplied by the variable. So in this case, it was a 2 and a negative 3. Notice I'm saying negative 3. Okay, so it's just a few little parts of an expression slash equation that we kind of need to get out of the way before we can continue. So if I were to ask you to just fill this table with a bunch of words that mean these different operations, you may write things like plus, right? Minus, times, divided by, right? Those are kind of the basic ones, but we've got some that require a little bit more thought and are a little bit more hidden. So for example, add, we might say increased by. Okay, subtract, we may say less than. Divide, you may hear the word quotient. Let's see, what else? Multiply, you might hear the word product. You might hear sum with add. There's tons of these, right? What's important is that you don't just look for the normal ones you're used to seeing, that you kind of stretch your brain a little bit and think about what's happening. What I think is going to be more unusual, or at least new to you, is going to be the parts at the bottom of this table, okay? So exponents, actually, that's not so bad. That's just like squared or to the power of, those aren't a big deal. But equals and parentheses is important. The biggest word for equals is that, okay? That's the reason if I go back to that first slide where we were talking about the ones I asked you to write down, a lot of y'all for this one, you wrote x is less than 5. Notice the way I said that, or no, you wrote the other way. 5 less than a number, sorry, other way. Forget that, 5 less than x, there we go. The reason that's not what I was going for is because you would technically read this as 5 is less than x, okay? Sometimes we don't read it that way. We just say 5 less than x. But really, if you don't see the word is, then that implies that it's just an expression. It is missing that middle term that gives a comparison, this little middle piece right here. It's either going to be an equal sign or an inequality symbol, but you need that word is to tell you that. Otherwise, less than means subtraction, right? Think about if I was to say, what is 2 less than your age? Well, if you're 14, 2 less than that would be 12, right? You just did a math problem. You didn't write x less than 2, or 14 less than 2, whatever, make it a symbol. So think about, kind of stretch your brain a little bit, think about other ways that we might use those words. So is huge for equals. Huge, 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 okay? Parentheses, this is a big one. If you see the word quantity of, and sometimes just of in general on its own, those mean parentheses, okay? What's implied there is that you really understand how PEMDAS works, right? With PEMDAS, we should always do things in a certain order. What if I want to take the quantity of something and multiply it by 4? Well, what if that quantity is an addition problem? I need to add before I multiply? That's not right, right? We always multiply before we add. So if I'm wanting to do addition first, that's when I need the parentheses to tell the reader that I want to add first. Okay, this will make a little bit more sense when we do some problems. So let's just start practicing. Write an algebraic expression for each verbal expression given below. So the sum of x and y increased by the product of a and b. Well, let's take it one piece at a time. The sum of x and y, okay? Well, that means we're adding x and y. Increased by, that means we're adding to it, the product of a and b. You could also just write ab. Now, before I move on from this, I want to make sure that the order of operations is going to work out correctly. So PEMDAS would state that I need to do multiplication first, okay? If I do this multiplication first right here, is that going to make a difference? No, right? That's exactly what I want to happen. If I do the multiplication first, I'm going to end up with the product of a and b, added to x plus y. So that works just fine, okay? So number 2, the difference between the product of a number and 6 and 8. When you read something that says the difference between, you're always going to do it in the order that it's written. So the difference between, that means when we subtract, the first thing they say is going to come first. The second thing they say is going to come last. So the difference between the product of a number and 6, that's my first thing. Product of a number and 6. Okay, so I'm going to write 6x. Okay, so the difference between that and 8. That means 8 is the last thing. So look for that and to kind of tell you when to switch to the other part of the subtraction problem. Okay, 2 plus the quantity of 7 subtracted from k. Okay, 2 plus, I can write that. That's no big deal. 2 plus the quantity of. Okay, here's quantity of. So we are adding to 2 this quantity of 7 subtracted from k. Well, they're telling us that we need to do that subtraction first. But PEMDAS states that we go from left to right, right? So I need the parentheses here so that I do the subtraction first and then add it to the 2. Okay, so 7 subtracted from k. That would be k minus 7. Subtracted from. I'm taking the 7 away from the k. You really have to think there about the wording. Some people would write 7 minus k because the word 7 came first. But if you're taking 7 away from the k, it actually comes second. A number divided by 8. That's simple. X over 8. I wrote that on there just so that you know the order. Whenever they say quotient or divided by, the first thing they say is the thing that goes on top or the thing that would go first. And the second thing they say comes last. You could also write this as x divided by 8, but we don't really do that very often in algebra. 6 more than the product of x and y. 6 more than, so 6 plus this product. You could also write it the other way, right? xy plus 6. We learned our properties in 6th grade that allow us to do that. 9 less than twice the quantity of a number increased by 3. That's kind of a long one, right? 9 less than. Before I even write 9 minus, I need to think about this. If I said, again, 2 less than your age, you're thinking in your mind, okay, I'm 13, I'm 14, 9 less than that or 2 less than that, I'm going to subtract that from my age. So this 9 less than right here actually is going to go in the back of my problem. Anytime you see the word less than, I'd maybe make a note on the side of your notes. Less than is a crazy one, okay? All right, goes in the back. Okay. Alrighty, so 9 less, and we got that twice the quantity of a number increased by 3. So I'm not doing 2 times something like quick, like 2x. I'm doing 2 times a whole quantity. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 2 down, but I need to multiply it by something in parentheses. 2 times a number increased by 3. So here's this number increased by 3, and I'm multiplying 2 by that quantity once I get it. PEMDAS allows us to do this x plus 3 first because we put it in parentheses. Alrighty, 7. The sum of x and y, okay, cool. I'll see if I need to put it in parentheses in just a second, increased by the quotient of x and y, okay? Well, again, I want to increase my sum by the quotient, but does the order matter? Do I need these parentheses here and here? Not necessarily, because no matter what, I'm going to do the quotient first, and then it's all going to be added anyway, so it doesn't really matter the order in which it happens. Alrighty. So here's 4 more. I'm not going to actually go through all of these just for time's sake, but they're wanting you to write the verbal expression. The reason I'm not going to go through all these is because we could come up with 1,000 different ways to write it for every single one. We haven't done a power one, so I'm going to do number 8, and I'm going to write x cubed divided by 5. What else could I write? I could write the quotient of x to the power of 3 and 5. Okay, there's tons more. I'm going to pause the video now and go ahead and write out some options just so you can see some other ones, but I didn't want to take the time to go through writing all of them out on the video because it would take forever. But if you want to go ahead and pause it now and try some of these on your own, you are more than welcome to. Just know that your answers may not match mine exactly because there's so many different types of answers. Feel free to come show me your answers and I'll try to check them. Alrighty, so there's some options. Like I said, feel free to compare, but just know that yours may not be exactly the same. Pause if you need to. Alrighty, so all that is left is for you to try out the few that are remaining in your notes packet. I'll go ahead and share those answers with you tomorrow. Your homework really isn't homework. Your homework is more just to finish this out. I'll just be checking for completion on whether or not you did your notes and followed along with this video.